Zoning Commission. Just for the record, Viviana, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Debbie Moore,
Here.
Glenn Johnson,
Can't hear you, Glenn.
Glenn, you're muted. He's here. He's here.
He's here. We can see him. Yes.
Cynthia Meyer,
Here.
Matt Lassen.
Matt's here.
All right. Greg Sherry,
I'm here.
Ismail Harris.
Here.
All right. Pablo Cerna.
Here.
And Cheryl let us know that she wasn't going to be able to make it.
All righty. So we do have a quorum. Do we have any person that has sent in a request to speak on an item not on the agenda?
Not at this time, Madam Chair, and we do have the plan email up and running in case we get any public comments during the meeting.
Okay, great. This would be the time that any citizen could speak for 3 minutes on an item that is not on the agenda. So not having any, we will move on to item 3, items for individual consideration. 3A is consider action to approve meeting minutes from the July 30, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've all had a chance to look over them. Are there any additions or corrections or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
By Pablo, second by all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 3B, consider action to approve a final plat for Piney Creek Bend, Phase 2A, being 16.934 acres of Bastrop Town Tract Abstract 11, located west of Carter Street between Riverwood Drive and Reeves Bend within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas. Ms. Jennifer, is that you? Ms. Jennifer, where are you?
Yes, she is here, and we are launching her microphone right now.
There we go. Sorry about that. I was muted, so I was making sure I got unmuted. Okay. So, the first thing we have to consider tonight is a final plat for Piney Creek Bend. This is phase 2A, so they already have the first phase recorded and has been under construction for about the past year and a half or so. So this is an additional 16.93 acres. It's located west of Carter Street, south of Reeves Bend, obviously just west of the houses that are currently under construction in the Piney Creek Bend subdivision. You can see this is the area. It's comprised of the future land use for this area is neighborhood residential. Its character district is Plan Development District, and its place type is also PDD for the Piney Creek Bend Plan Development District. The preliminary plat for this was approved by City Council on November 17th, 2017. So you can see this is the layout of the lot. This does back up to the Piney Creek. So it is, they're attempting to stay out of all the floodplain. It's a fairly large acreage, and they'll be, in the next plat, you'll see they're dedicating a lot of open space. So this portion is a little under 17 acres. They're doing 72 single family homes. The lots, because of their restrictions on their PV, they have 6,000 square foot lots and 7,200 square foot lots to provide variety under our previous zoning code. They're also dedicating 4 new streets with the street pavement of the actual streets of 26 feet. The Development Review Committee, which is comprised of city staff across all the different departments that oversee public works, utilities, fire, met on this on August 13th, 2020, and found the plat to be administratively complete, meeting B3 code and the PDD requirements, and recommended approval of this final plat. They also, in your staff report, I kind of detailed, they have, one of the things we're doing now is called a public improvement plan agreement. and that agreement is approved by City Council, and it lays out the things that the developer is expected to provide during the construction of the public utilities and streets. It also, in this case, they provided fiscal guarantee for those public improvements so they can record the plat ahead of time and start, pre-selling lots. But the money is there. Should, for any reason, the developer walk away, we can go pull that money and go build the infrastructure ourselves. So, and very rarely has a developer ever walked away when they have a couple $1 million on the line. So, but staff recommends the approval of this plat, and if the commission has any questions, I can answer them. And Viviana, I don't know if the applicant is online or not.
Yes, he's on the line.
If you have any questions, the applicant's on the line as well. If you have something for him.
I did have a question. If you could go back to the overall plat, there you go. And as I understand it, they revised it so they're staying out of the floodplain, correct?
So this section that was never going to be in the floodplain. The next plat, the section 2B, there were some of the lots that had been in the floodplain, and that's why they broke it into two sections. Is all the lots that had previously been in the floodplain, they put in a separate plat in case they couldn't get the FEMA letter of map revision fast enough, that they were able to go ahead with this section and then wait on those other ones. They don't, if you record a plat with the floodplain on there, it'll pull up every time a surveyor surveys a lot. So they wanted to have that revision done before they recorded those lots to show that they weren't in the floodplain.
Okay, so and I guess they're going to build out the other parts of this down the road.
What was the question?
They're going to be developing the plots. I mean, the other parts. I guess the other phases. As I'm looking at it, to the left and north of these of this particular phase.
Yes. So and then I can move on to the next one, but it's just a few, since they're pretty much the same idea. That the next section is all the stuff to the north, and there's a couple lots down here at the south that abut the open space lot.
Oh, okay.
So that's the second phase. So it's an additional 22 lots that were a little closer to the creek.
So, what kind of impact is this going to have on that creek?
So it shouldn't have any impact. They are direct discharging to the creek. When you're this close to a watershed, it's actually better to not detain the water, because all you're doing, you'd rather the water in this area get out first before all the water that's coming from the rest of the town starts coming this way. So that the entire subdivision has been, it has a public improvement plan, set of plans on it that have all the drainage requirements. Then they meet our new drainage manual. So this section actually does meet our updated standards.
Okay, so in the event of like a heavy rain, the impact on, because that creek tends to flood pretty often, right? And so with an increase of homes and drainage and streets, increase the velocity of the water moving somewhere. I'm just wondering myself, what is the impact of that creek, or to the creek, I should say.
To the creek, that's been mitigated through the way the water, the storm drains do slow down the way it's designed. It does, I think a lot of it discharges to the north. If you go out there, you can kind of see how they've graded down the north, and that area slows down the water and then lets it out into the creek at a slower velocity.
Okay.
It should not impact the overall watershed.
Thank you.
Jennifer, two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One being, does this comply with their PD as previously approved?
Yes.
And second, could you speak just to a moment again about the dedication of the infrastructure? And I understand that they haven't built it yet, but it's been we're approving the plat so they can pre-sell lots. That they've set the money aside. Should they not go through with it, that we could actually build it if we needed to. But where do they get? Who gives them permission to do that? Where is it written into the code or just development process that they can do that? That we can? Is it part of our new code that says they can do that, or where does the right to do that come from?
It's part of our new code, and it was actually part of our previous code as well. That is, and it's actually, yeah, having a bond present. So that's in the new code. One of the things we adopted with the development manual was actually a standard format for the public improvement plan agreement that lays out the responsibilities of the city and the developer. So it's actually much cleaner than our previous process was, because it gives expected the thresholds that the developer has to meet and maintain in order for us to accept the infrastructure once they're done building it, and make sure the process is that they know exactly what they have to do when, in order for the city to give them that certificate of completion and accept the infrastructure.
All right.
And then the other requirement is once they are complete with the infrastructure, we do require a 2-year maintenance bond on the infrastructure. So we have 2 years to monitor, and if there's any defects in the workmanship, we're able to go pull that money or go back to the contractor and have them fix the infrastructure.
Again, remind me, what was the time frame of the maintenance bond? Is it 2 years? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyone
I have
else?
a question.
Go ahead.
Jennifer, I noticed that both this matter and the next matter has lot sizes that are not in compliance with the minimum lot size of the zoning ordinance. Is this an exception to the ordinance, or are we approving an exception, or?
Of which ordinance? So our current B3 codes actually we don't have minimum lot sizes in our new code at all. We have minimum block sizes. We don't have actual lot sizes in the B3 code. But in this case, the lot sizes were locked in with the planned development district. That they were supposed to have a mix of 6,000 square foot lots and 7,200 square foot lots, because the previous code required they were minimum of 60-foot lots at a depth of I think a 6,000 square feet was the minimum that we had in our old codes. This provided a mix of lot sizes.
Also, has the previous zoning ordinance regarding lot size been revoked?
Yes. The zoning ordinance, yes, that was replaced with the B3 code.
Okay, that confused me when you were saying that it was not, the zoning ordinance requires the minimum lot size. So that's really a requirement that no longer exists.
Well, the zoning ordinance for the planned development district. So when we adopted the B3 codes, we adopted place types 1 through 5 for most of town. But existing planned development districts such as Piney Creek Bend, Pecan Park, Bastrop Grove, they already had established standards, a lot of which were based on our previous code. So those are locked in because they already, especially with this development and Pecan Park, had already started developing under that old code, and they wanted to be able to continue with that, the rules and regulations that they were locked in with their. Basically, they have customized zoning districts.
All those developments have been on the drawing board for a number of years, and sort of a grandfathering in under those, but they won't be allowed in the future on a lot of issues.
But,
any other questions?
I did have a follow up on, and you kind of answered it right there. I understand. Is there any plan showing the street types and sidewalks? And I know there's going to be some areas that are going to be on one side are going to be residential, on the other side may be green areas. Are we looking at trying to get some street types identified up front, or how is that going to happen?
So in this case, they're following their original. The first section was designed under the old code, so they're continuing They actually, you do kind of lock into subdivision regulations when you get approval. So their previous preliminary plat was locked in under the previous subdivision ordinance. So they can use the old street standards and not our new street standards for this subdivision.
All right. Well,
And the right-of-way widths here are 50 feet, and our new right-of-way widths are 55.5 feet, so it's a little less. And we had some different sidewalk and street standards under the previous subdivision ordinance.
So that kind of, this is an older plan, older layout, and there's not a whole lot we can request at this point.
That's right.
We were actually reviewing this before even the B3 codes were adopted. So this has been under works for a while. So
Years.
yeah.
Oh,
So Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but since they are in compliance with their plan development as approved by council, that as long as they're within the guidelines of that plan, there's nothing we can do to change it. We're legally obliged to say yes.
Yes.
This.
Mm-hmm.
We have no real. The time to debate street widths and locations and drainage was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they are following their approved preliminary plat as well. So.
Yeah.
I have a question about the right of way. The paragraph confuses me that there's Carter Street will have 4.5 feet more, 4.45 feet more. And it says that Piney Creek will dedicate 2.23 feet, but who's dedicating the other portion of the extra right of way to make it a 60-foot wide street?
So that'll be one that's going to be fun because we don't require that additional 60 foot anymore. So that's one where, since the other side wasn't under development when we started this, there will in the future, since we adopted the new code on our new right of way width requirement for this street type is 55.5 feet. They actually had already met it with Carter Street, but they were already locked in on their preliminary plat for dedicating that additional 2.23 feet under their previous preliminary plat. So we won't ever actually get that 2.23 feet unless we change our standard right-of-way width to 60 again. So.
Again, they got in before the change.
Yes, they got in before the change, so they're still obligated under their preliminary plat to do that.
They got in long before the moratorium was even thought about.
And it also makes it consistent for their development because they did dedicate that 2.23 feet on section 1.
Right.
And one question about the floodplain. I understand that FEMA determines that, and they approve individual exceptions, or if the lines are drawn and they don't have something on a specific lot. Do we know when that 100-year floodplain was decided, or the
letter of map revision? I'd have to go look up the exact date, but it came through earlier this summer. About, I think, June was when it was finally approved. That was what they were kind of waiting on for Section 2B. Was
okay. And so, but the FEMA determines when the floodplain is determined, right? I mean, they're the ones that evaluate and draw the floodplain line, right?
Yes, yeah. So if anyone wants to change a floodplain line, that actually is going to at the federal level to FEMA to get that changed. And there's a number of ways to do it. In this case, they did it was a study method. They actually did a study of the entire watershed going up Piney Creek all north, and determined the true floodplain line, or what was determined. Floodplain study-wise, there's a very technical explanation for it all, like that was the actual floodplain, and we're able to revise it that way. Pecan Park, similarly with their revisions, they actually did a fill, so they got FEMA to approve them going in and filling in the floodplain to raise it out of the levels. So.
Well, when I know there were new floodplain maps presented at various city council meetings after a recent flood event. Do we have any right to go to FEMA and to make sure that the floodplain that they're using to approve is in reality what we find in the city of Bastrop?
And I believe that is an effort that I'd have to check with the assistant city manager on that, because he's kind of been overseeing that. That we've been working with Half Associates, who's been doing a lot of our study. I know they've been working on a county-wide study of the floodplains and all that, and put together some information to send to FEMA to possibly adjust the floodplain. But I don't know where they are in that process. So, because the last time I think our floodplain was like truly reevaluated by FEMA was in like the early 90s. So.
The early 90s?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, we're stuck with approving something that meets the floodplain as it existed in 1990.
Well, they did restudy it, so that's one of the ways to get it updated. Is developer by developer can come in and restudy certain areas. So that's what they did in this instance. Is they restudied it themselves and submitted it to FEMA to get the floodplain line revised.
But there's nothing we can do about it. I just don't want to approve a whole row of houses that are going to get flooded.
So
Yeah.
Jennifer,
And even if the houses were in the floodplain, our code does allow you to build in the floodplain. If you do it, you have to elevate the house 2 feet above the base flood level. So people can still actually build in the floodplain, but they have additional building standards they have to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, you have something?
Go ahead, Matt.
no, I was going to speak to the plus 2 feet issue that Jennifer just brought up about building at or in the floodplain.
Okay,
Can I say something?
sure.
I remember hearing something that this happened in Houston, where, as you recall, there were a number of homes that were built in an area that was basically a drainage way, where the Corps of Engineers were allowed to release water as a means to control flooding up creek. So a number of these homeowners bought in this area, and they didn't really bother to read very carefully that they were buying into that. And one of the things that I remember about this effort was when it came before the planning and zoning at the time, they had said to the developer to put on their drawings any lots that were in the floodplain were to be noted on the cover sheet so that it could be found in some way. Now, they actually did that, but they put it in very tiny font, and it wasn't emphasized, because I can understand, those lots may take a hit. There has to be some way. How are we going to notify people that they're purchasing lots in a floodplain? Do we have a method?
So in this instance, the lots will not be located in a floodplain, so they won't have any notification. But and that's part of why they were holding off on recording 2B or bringing 2B back. So they didn't have that on the lots. If you look at Pecan Park plats, we do require them to show the floodplain as it runs through the lots. And they have to include a finished floor elevation, like what the house has to be elevated to be out of the floodplain. But Pecan Park does revise the floodplain, but by the time they get there and it's revised, it's already on the plat and recorded. So it always pulls up on the survey then. That's what Piney Creek Bend was trying to avoid, was having it pull up on a survey. So if we do have lots that are truly in the floodplain on the final plat, they do note it in our plats. They are required to. So.
Hey Jennifer, this is Gary Jones. Can I help with this?
Yeah, yes, Gary, you're the expert, please.
So not only have we done a flood study of the entire Piney Creek, watershed, the developer has chosen to elevate these lots out of what is known as a Atlas 14 floodplain. So that is, if you watch this subdivision being built, they have brought in a significant amount of fill for these lots to elevate these lots not only out of the 100-year floodplain, which is the current FEMA regulation, but the Atlas 14 which is much higher flow rates that will probably be regulatory someday, but they aren't right now. So this developer is going over and beyond, and spending a lot of money to make sure that these lots are out of the floodplain.
Thank you.
That's helpful. That's helpful to know. The house I grew up in was flooded in Houston. Fortunately, no one.
Yeah, yes, sir. And Piney, you guys are. I mean, your concern is absolutely valid. Piney Creek has got a tremendous amount of water coming through it. It's about it's about 20 in the 28,000 cubic feet per second range. So this is a massive amount of water, and we certainly share your concern. But those concerns we've been working on those things for a long time, and they have been vetted through FEMA to get that FEMA. This area was actually a Zone A property, which was not studied before. We have utilized the half study that was done for the entire city and county, and we have piggybacked that study to take it to another level and actually submit that to FEMA to establish base flood elevations for this property.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
I'm glad that that's being the case. It's not always the case everywhere, so that's why we're asking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve as is.
Second.
Second by Ishmael. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition. Passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We move on to item 3C. Consider action to approve a final plat for Piney Creek Bend Phase 2B, being 36.628 acres of Bastrop Town Tract Abstract 11, located west of Carter Street between Riverwood Drive and Reed's Bend within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas.
This is the remainder of the subdivision. It's the stuff along the creek and a few lots. This area that my cursor's over was dedicated with the previous section. So you have these lots down here and a few lots along the outer side. You can see right here. The remainder of this, I think 32 acres, is actually going to be open space. So this entire subdivision has around 50 acres of open space. Some of it is the creek, but a lot of it is floodplain. But it's to protect the watershed. This is the way you do protect the creek and make sure that you're not building into it. So, like I said, this is the phase 2B, so really the third section of this subdivision. It's 22 lots. Again, there's the mix of the 6,000 and 7,200 square foot lots. This is the section that has, this is the remaining section of Carter Street that they're dedicating the additional right of way. And then this is the section that they were waiting on that letter of map revision from FEMA. And that 32 acres of open space, we're specifically calling it open space and not parkland, because the goal of this is not to develop it as a park, an active park like you see Fisherman's Park with activities and playscapes. This is going to be a natural park to allow for that area to be the buffer for the creek. The developer is, however, putting in a 10-foot walking trail that'll hug right behind the lots, and it connects down from Carter Street all the way around and then connects back to Carter Street at the top. So it'll provide a passive but activity for the neighborhood and other residents in the area to be able to enjoy that creek frontage. And then the DRC did meet again on this one on August 13th, and they did have one condition. One thing that I think was left off was, or that I just want to make sure was really clear, that there was a 20-foot public utility easement across the frontage of all the open space lots. The plat was very clear about that there was across the fronts of the single-family lots. We just want to make sure in the open space, because the Bastrop Power and Light is actively out there right now putting in all those electric lines for the subdivision, and they wanted to be clear that they have their utility easement around those lines. So that's, and I believe Gary already has made that change and has the Mylar ready to deliver to the city tomorrow. So staff does recommend approval with that additional condition that they show that on the final plat Mylar. Any questions on this section?
No questions?
No questions.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve as is.
Second.
As okay, move, motion, and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. Number 5, update. Update on recent city council actions regarding planning.
Skipped over 4.
I'm sorry?
Did you skip over number 4?
Oh, excuse me, workshop. Didn't mean to do that. Workshop session 4A, discussion on the schedule for reviewing and proposing amendments to the Bastrop building block B3 code and direction to staff on specific concerns.
So staff has kind of sat down and hammered out a tentative schedule, but we think this is a doable. I don't feel like this should hopefully not be rushing any of us through this this review period. We did acknowledge when we adopted the code that especially in the first year, that we were going to need to do a review of it, make sure everything was working as intended, and make any amendments as necessary. So this is a schedule in your packet is what staff has proposed as moving forward, that starting in September, we'll do kind of a more intensive review of the B3 code sections. Really hope you guys get involved, look at the code, see, go back to your mind on what we talked about when we were adopting it, and see if it reads the way you thought we were adopting it, that it's working the way you think it was, and that we were intended to work through all of our code rodeos and design rodeos that everyone participated in. And then October, November, December, staff will be bringing forward some draft code, different sections of the code to review and discuss, and make sure we're getting to the policy and the direction that the city and city council have been going the last several years. We also in November will bring forward the public hearing to adopt our 2021 uniform submittal schedule. This was something that was new last year with House Bill 3167. We have timelines we have to meet for specific types of applications. So the submittal schedule allows us to make sure we're meeting those deadlines. And then in January, kind of tentatively, we're going to have a joint meeting with City Council, kind of like we did during the code option, to go over any final thoughts, feelings we have about the code, and then at the end of January, have those final code revisions ready for you guys to review and make a recommendation to City Council on. Any thoughts on this schedule?
I don't have any problem with this schedule. I am concerned that another year pretty much has gone by and we have not looked at our comp plan. We had been talking about doing that for months and months and months, and for obvious reasons, things have been put off.
Yes.
Are you planning on any of these upcoming sessions to have some discussions? It doesn't have to be a comprehensive all-in-one and one big meeting to discuss everything. But the items that impact us the most, I want to look at and see if they're still reading the way we wanted them to, because that's a plan that we made a commitment to that's not going to be sitting on a shelf and gathering dust. It's a living document. We've made some incredible strides with the B3, and I think it's the perfect time to look at how our comp plan and the B3 codes work together.
Yes, definitely. That's one thing that's on our list is with the adoption of B3 codes, we need to update our future land use plan just to make sure that the references are accurate to the new B3 code, for one. And then two, it is the future land use plan was adopted at the end of, was it 2016? So we're coming up on our 5-year. So every 5 years is your horizon for doing a review, not an overhaul, not a brand new comprehensive plan, but a review and making sure your goal statements and policy statements are still in line with the vision for the city. So that is on our radar for 2021, definitely.
And there's also a provision that we can look at it every year. So
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to necessarily wait for the 5 years because we're doing a lot of good things and a lot of new things, and we want to make them mesh.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Well,
Anybody have
Well, they certainly, as we're like looking at, the new review of the B3 codes as well, it would be helpful to go through our pertinent areas of the comp plan. And if there's IEDs in the comp plan that aren't quite as reflected in the B3 codes that need to be updated, it seems like it's a pretty good time where we've got till January to knock some of this stuff out if we so chose to go through a couple of those chapters at the end of this year, kind of the September, October, November time.
Yeah, the future land use section is definitely probably the most pertinent section of the code to go through. So that's one we can talk about.
Well, maybe we can add that to the September's agenda.
Okay.
Start going through that.
Yeah. We can do that.
Cool. Anybody else?
Jennifer, the dates in January on this is supposed to be 21, right?
Yes, it is 21. Good catch. I'm still in this year. So
I want this year to be over. I don't know about anybody else.
I know.
Hey, it's okay if you want to repeat the year and get restarted. I'm good with moving forward.
Dude.
I had one thought about Jennifer. You talk about the online application process, and I just want to understand a little bit how that can be worked into the discussion. How someone can go through, from start to finish. That can be presented at some point along this timeline.
The new online process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can add that in one of these meetings. Yeah.
Cool. Anything
How's
else?
that going? How's it going? Is that working out pretty good?
Yeah, it's a lot more helpful. Our previous system didn't allow. Well, we never got to the online portion. It was built kind of on some outdated technology. So this allows applicants to submit their plans online and see where they are, and actually see all the inspections that are coming up, especially for our building department. And it's been good for the planning department because we're actually able to see, when everyone reviews it, everyone gets it at the same time. We're not having to try to transfer plans around in Dropbox. So it keeps everything in one spot, and we can see the history of what's going on as the applicant can too. So it's been good.
Good to hear.
Good. Anything else? Now can I go to 5, Jennifer?
You can.
All right. Update. 5A, update on recent city council actions regarding planning department items.
We haven't had anything that's gone from P&Z to council lately. We will, as you guys are working through and reviewing sections of the code, we will be taking those with council as well, so they can workshop some of these items too, so that when you guys get together in January, you're all on the same page. So that's pretty much all we've got.
Okay.
How's the search going? Are we still searching for planning director?
That's still on the list. It didn't get cut out of the budget, so yes, it's we're working on other positions in the department as well. So we're actively filling some of our other positions first and working on. I know the new city manager is looking at that job description and figuring out what direction he wants to go with that.
Item 5B, if we're ready to move on. Individual requests from planning and zoning commissioners that particular items be listed on future agendas. I don't know if we want it on our future agenda, but I want it to be known that we would like to meet in person, if at all possible. And
That is
and-
something we are working on. So we're trying to work on setting up some space in the convention center. Part of the problem for the boards and commissions that are on Facebook as well is we end up having to run 3 meetings in one when we're part in person, part online, and having to go to Facebook. And with a board as large or the commission as large as P&Z, it's a lot of people. So we're trying to get that space set up so everyone can space out. We can meet every guidelines and then, but and still be able to push everything out to Facebook appropriately.
And I wanted everyone to know that our council liaison, Council Member Lyle Nelson, has been watching from afar. And a little bird tells me some council members would like people to meet in person too. So just gonna pass that along. Anything else? Thank you, everybody. Item 6.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second. Oh, Matt. Thank y'all.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Bye.
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 Bye.